Hello and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. Well, we've had about a week to play on DeSalle, Hunt Showdown's third map, which is now on the PC test servers, and I'm pretty impressed by what Crytek have pulled together here. In this video, in the background, I'll be showing you some of the areas across the map, and I'm going to be discussing, as we look at that footage, how it's different from anything that we've seen previously. I'll go through some of the design choices that were made that really make DeSalle stand out from the other two maps. I feel like the design team have really upped the ante when it comes to delivering this world. But first, let's look at some of the additional changes that have been announced since my 1.6 patch notes video last week. Firstly, changes to explosive ammo are coming through. Not only is the ratio of damage from explosive ammo shifting to the impact of the bullet more so than the explosion itself, but the ammo will have a higher damage fall off over range. These changes will not be applying to the Nitro Express. The Bulwark trait will now be twice as effective, reducing explosive damage by 50% rather than 25%. To compensate for this, Wax Dynamite, Dynamite Sticks and Red Barrels are getting a 50% damage buff, but if you want to reliably kill someone with explosives now that Bulwark is so strong, just use a frag bomb, they're much better anyway. Medium ammo is having its range increased even further than previously announced. For example, the Carabiner will now be able to headshot up to 203 meters for lethal damage, and Full Metal Jacket ammo will have a further range increase of 10%. Finally, options are now in place to hide the MMR of your team when in the lobby screen. This won't hide anything from people that you actually play against, but it will be useful for some streamers. Okay, let's talk about DeSalle. The first thing that you'll notice is how visually distinct it is. There are of course a good chunk of reused assets, but there are a lot of new ones as well. The autumn trees, the areas of bare rock, new components throughout certain compounds mean that just by looking around, it's obvious that you are in a new place. DeSalle is an entirely new biome. You can see it and hear it, even with the ambient map noises in the background having a distinct audio mix. The compounds, probably more than any other map, are highly distinctive as well. Rather than have 3 or 4 generic farms, each area does feel distinct and has its own assets. There are also a range of differences when it comes to the gunplay. The hallmark of this map is verticality. It's the only map that has truly meaningful elevation change throughout the terrain. Although previous maps have had small areas of raised terrain with compounds that offer some verticality, DeSalle has taken this concept and greatly exaggerated it. There are some really significant slopes here. Fighting up or down a hill can add a great deal of excitement to any gunfight. The way that the compounds themselves interact with terrain is also more interesting. In the past, compound buildings would generally sit on top of a flat area. Even elevated compounds on the first two maps are situated on plateau-like areas of equal elevation across the main compound area. DeSalle does away with this restriction, and it places some compounds on the sides of steep hills, and really integrates the verticality of compounds with the verticality of the terrain in ways that we have not seen in Hunt before. This design philosophy just makes the different areas much more interesting, both to look at and to fight through. It also opens up some really long sight lines from one compound to another. There are opportunities for some great long-range shots, which is why they've buffed range on so many weapons, with vegetation intentionally absent from the routes between many lookout points across the map, so you can see far and shoot far from compound to compound. Now this doesn't mean that DeSalle is going to be a sniper's heaven, because these long sight lines reach only between a network of critical positions, and the rest of the map is extraordinarily dense. It feels like there's just more stuff here, which means more cover. Compounds feel like they sprawl out further than before, almost merging into the next compound over, without an obligatory open field between them. One of the great things about this density is that it feels deliberate. It consists of mainly trees, buildings and undulations in the terrain rather than dense bushes, which is great, because no one likes an overabundance of dense bushes. Perhaps more importantly, it feels organic, rather than just having, okay, this is the fish compound, then there's some fields, then there's the brinery compound, then there's some fields, then there's the farm, then there's some fields. It feels like these compounds are all part of one big area that just naturally flow together. You'll leave one area, which is a town, you'll be walking through some dense foresty area, and then all of a sudden you've got a church on a hill rising up a couple of meters in front of you, and you didn't even realize that you swapped from one compound to another. It just feels much more organic. It seems like positioning is going to be even more important on the DeSalle map. There are areas where you have excellent cover from one position, but are completely exposed on the other side, especially to the north and the south where these canyon terrain pieces come into play. And then you'll probably notice that there's less water. Well, DeSalle is a different biome, it's a lot drier, and yes, there's river and water areas running through particularly the center of the map, but there's no corner swamps, which is nice. And the areas that do have water are also perhaps the most highly vegetated, so it's a little bit of a trade-off there. DeSalle is definitely a good map. It just needs to be played more, but I'd go as far as to say that it's Hunt's best map so far. They've learnt a lot from their past two outings, and they've combined the most interesting compound design with great use of terrain and verticality, and also a good mix of cover and concealment density, and this will lead to diverse fights without encouraging too much of a passive playstyle. All of the compounds themselves seem to be set up so that you can throw stuff in, you can shoot through walls. It'll make creative attackers able to really do some damage to people that try and hole up inside, unless those people holding up inside are clever at what they're doing and they know the terrain really well. Yes, camping or holding a position is certainly a valid playstyle in Hunt, but having lots of counterplay options to that playstyle is really critical if the game is going to be fluid and not going to drag on and on and on and on waiting for one person to make a move, so that compound design is really good. There is also a swath of Easter eggs as usual, many of which are still being discovered, and it's going to take a long time to learn all of the routes in and out of the compounds, because there are plenty of hidden access points like a fake toilet or a coal conveyor belt. So let me know what you think of DeSalle in the comments below. I certainly look forward to it hitting the live servers so that I can play on something better than 160 ping. Thank you so much for watching, and also a massive thank you to our Patreon supporters as well. We'll have some much closer analysis of DeSalle when I have a better feel for the compounds, and hopefully some more weapon guides in the next couple of weeks as well. I'll catch you next time. This is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming.